Welcome, welcome to the Inside the Lab weekly live Q&A. We are here on this glorious Saturday here in January, one of my favorite places to be, right? And that's here with all of you here on the live stream where we could talk about, of course, all things PC tech, right? And PC gaming. And of course, where I can hopefully answer your questions either in a ask me anything format, right? Because that's something I still like to keep the mic open for, right? I shared here recently on my Twitter, which if you're not following me on Twitter, here comes the early shameless plugs. But follow me over on Twitter at Inside the Lab YT, as I normally share some of my normal, some of my normal outings or what have you, what I got going on through the day as a creator and as I manage this brand. But I had tweeted one of my favorite music albums to just play while I'm setting up gear, equipment, or if I'm building, I'll have something playing in the background, either a podcast or like another creator's video, or I'll be listening to music. And Run the Jewels is one of those albums I could just throw on and just create thumbnails or just work on the website, among other things. But yeah, we are here on this Saturday's live stream, and the topic of this week's live stream is we're going to talk about some of the best ways you can get into PC gaming, especially with a 2021 edition, given that what's going on with the PC market, because, ladies and gentlemen, scalpers are still, causing new graphics cards to not be able to reach the average consumers and get into the hands of normal gamers. I've talked to some of you, which I see you're here now in the chat too, by the way. But I talked to a lot of you on the videos, and we talk about some of the reasons why we have these shortages and mining. The popularity of mining and Bitcoin value going up definitely has something to do with it. So yeah, we're going to talk about all that in this live stream. But let me go in the chat as we wait for more friends to join in, because I want to say what's up to Damian Warren. What's going on, brother? It's good to see another creator in the house. All right. Benji does stuff. What's up, fam? It's good to see you too. I'm not sure if we had you on the show here before, but it's good to see you. Welcome to the live show. Damon says stay hydrated. I'm going to try. I'm going to try. Sometimes I try to avoid drinking on the mic because it's so close to my mouth. And Plants PK says, do you sell PC parts? I think I answered that question on that video, Planks. Yeah, something we have to talk about a little bit more in the future, because normally I do, but given the current scope of things, there haven't been a lot of trade-ins that have come my way. So XLR8 Gaming says, "What's up, homies? Word up, chat." And Sparta Rules 1993 says, "Hey, what's up, brothers? Good to see you both, RTX1 and Sparta Rules. We got two regulars here on the show, but yeah, it's good to see everybody. Thank you for tuning in for our weekly Saturday live Q&A. If you have any questions along the way during this live stream, please feel free to ask. On the subject of my Twitter, I did tease that I would open up this box, and we talked about what could possibly, what could be inside of this box. We talked about it in the previous couple live streams. It came in Tuesday. I've been eager to open it, but I said, you know what, I'll wait and do it here on the live stream. So that is something we will open up most likely towards the end of the show. So do be sure to stick around for that if you're curious to know what's inside. And if you want to take a guess now, by all means, go for it. I won't tell you if you're right or wrong. Maybe I'll send little signals your way, to kind of like on a game of hot and cold. But yeah, XLR Ace Gaming says, let's see that bad boy. I'm eager to see it too. I'm eager to see it too. And before I show it, before I show what's inside of the box, I just want to say it necessarily wasn't my first choice. But given just from the research I've done, it appears that AMD and Nvidia will still continue to have these shortages with their high-end graphics cards through the remainder of 2021. So if you're looking to upgrade to a 6800 or 6000 series GPU, or even an RTX 3000 series GPU, you may not be able to get one directly from a retailer until September of 2021. Now, they are available, but scalpers and their resources make it extremely difficult to find it for the average consumer. Some of us have gotten lucky and have able to procure some of these graphics cards. I know some of you that are here now in the chat and who are who are show regulars here also have been able to pick up some of these graphics cards. And then there's other people I've talked to that have just been unable to upgrade at all. And the GDDR6 situation is making graphics cards like the 5700 XT and the just RDNA first generation RDNA GPUs in general, right? I've seen a couple 5500 XTs, but they are far and few in between. And I normally check the major retailers every day, right? Micro Center, Newegg is almost a long shot most of the time, along with Amazon. But I do try to check most of the major retailers, start with Micro Center because they are close and they don't ship. So that, I just hope that that increases the likelihood that I'm able to, pick up a GPU, especially for testing purposes, right? But yeah, Chris, Chris Stuckup is in the house. He says, "Hey everyone, it's good to see you, Chris. We haven't seen you in a while. It's good to have you, fam. It's good to have you on here on the show, here on the live stream. We are just kicking in and just doing our warm up here right before we jump into it. But it's good to see you. I see. Plant says, "Do you have an Intel Core i5-10400?" I do not, and I believe Plants that when I have replied to your comment, I told you that you could go with a Ryzen 5 3600, like a decent B550 motherboard, somewhere in like the 100 to 129 or $149 price range, depending on the kind of features you would want on your motherboard. But you can go with the $199 Ryzen 5 3600 and a B550 motherboard. That'd be a great pair for about that $210 CPU to $140 motherboard budget you had commented on that video. So, yeah, look into that. Look into see if you can find one. I know Amazon has plenty of stock, and I'm not sure if you have a Micro Center near you, but we are going to talk about this towards the end of the live stream. So definitely be sure to stick around for the remainder of that bit of news. But XLR8 welcomes Chris. Plank says go follow him, everybody. I do appreciate the plugs and definitely give the stream a like. And if you're new here to the stream or if you're here on the replay, I definitely welcome you to subscribe to the channel. We go live every week here about between 7 and 7:30 with our normal weekly content, which we do have some videos coming up here soon with a update or more so a series on my personal editing rig, right? Which I'm still very much undecided on because in a weird place with Intel's 11th generation Common Lake CPUs coming up here soon. So we have to wait and see. I am kind of interested. It's interesting because where that socket, the 500 series chipset, is going to top out at 8 cores, 16 thread CPU. So we won't see a 10 core, 20 thread, say 11900K on 11th gen CPUs. XLR8 Gaming says, no doubt, man, GPUs are crazy. People selling gaming PCs without cards. Yeah, I've seen some too. I've seen some ridiculously overpriced, systems selling on the Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp where the listers are trying, they're casually listing the PC without the graphics card, right? Like they'll list the CPU, they'll tell you what what FPS you can expect with that configuration, but they'll fail to mention that there's no dedicated graphics card, right? Very shady practices. But yeah, it's becoming more and more common. And the thing is, the prices don't necessarily come down on these systems. Most sellers think that they can get, they can demand a premier asking price just because of these shortages. And if you're if you have your nose, if you don't have your nose to the ground and you're paying attention to the market and all the trends and you're selling some of these older hardwares and you're well aware of the value they have simply because of global shortages. But graphics cards too in general, they're just marked up incredibly high, but you can find some. You really can. We're going to talk about it later on this live stream. Before we go on and do a little bit of house cleaning, let me catch up on the chat because XLR Gaming says Newegg is stocked with Ryzen 5 3600s. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I checked the other day because I thought about writing down to Micro Center to get one too to test here because on Twitter we talked about somebody one of the members here in our community had added me and said, is the Ryzen 5 3600 the new value CPU for $199? I certainly think it is. Before I called it like a slightly slower 8700K, right, with slightly better IPC. But for $199, it's one available, and two, you can pair it on a newer chipset, which will still leave you, the opportunity to upgrade down the road. So yeah, the Ryzen 5 3600 CPU to look out for. It really is. Chris says, because it's almost 2 a.m. in Poland, I would be more often if your streams were a bit earlier. Yeah, so that's something I thought about for the 2021 for our our global friends, and I thought about doing a daily podcast on top of our normal live show, keeping our live show separate, but doing a daily podcast where we like as a precursor to the live show, to where if you're unavailable to make the nighttime live show, that you can make the daytime podcast. So, Chris, that is something to consider and look out for in the future. But it is something that I do, want to do because I don't want to exclude, our friends that are all over the globe. We have so many good people in this community that are spread out far and wide. I do want to try to find a balanced time where we can get as many people here on the show as possible. But the replays are here for that reason, to where if you can't make the whole entire show, or you're interested to see what the if and you're interested to see the topic going into a little bit further detail, then definitely hang around for the replay. And if you're here watching the replay now, I definitely appreciate you being here now. Let me know down in the comment section if you're here on the replay. But I tell you what, let's jump right into it. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping, right? We have to. It's part of what we do here at Inside the Lab. But starting with our community newsletter, right? Because as I've said this before, I'm gonna say it until I am blue or browner in the face. But unity starts with you, right? Join our list. Become a inside the lab inside the lab specialist when you join our newsletter. Why? Because it'll allow me to connect with you in a more direct, personal way. YouTube notifications are great. Twitter's notifications are probably better than YouTube when it comes to real time notifications. But what's best is email. Email is the best way for me to communicate with you. It's totally free to sign up. Just need your email and your first name, so I know what to call you. It doesn't even have to be your real name. It can be your handle. It could be what you use here on Twitter, or I'm sorry, on YouTube, which is always helpful because then it allows me to, put the name with the face, if you will, and recognize you as one of our dedicated members here in the community, because of you guys and gals. You really make this dream possible. It really starts with you, Unity. It really starts with you. Join our list. You can find the link down in the description box below, or the pinned comment. But don't go there now. Wait till after the live stream to head over there, because on your way you can check out our merch store. Right? The merch is what it is. It's just it's a choice you have, or decision you have. If you want to support the channel, the proceeds directly go to me. They help out in a very small way. I really just want you to represent, the brand, and represent the community, right? Some awesome stuff here, and I'm going to add more content to the merch store here in 2021 with a few new additions to the meme edition class and the subplug class, and a few other new classes, right? You can see here I'm wearing one of the shirts now. The Inside the Lab. I believe this is the Subplug signature brand plug edition. So you have them in hoodies, tri blends, all sorts of different varieties. And then last but not least, our website, which is an extension of the content. You can find the latest videos, our blog, our brand blog, if you will, which I'm going to post more text content, more helpful content here going forward in the new year. So yeah, definitely check out the website. Definitely check out the website. And this is another way if you want to send me, a direct message, what have you, or contact me with an idea or criticism, if you will. I'm all for it. Look, it doesn't matter. Okay, I can handle it all. But you can hit me up here. But yeah, check out the website. All right. Let's see. Slide it back over to the chat. I see Plank says I'm building a PC. It has a Core i5 10400 GTX 1660 Super 500 gigabyte SSD, 2 terabyte hard drive. Okay, it's not a bad system. 10th generation i5s have hyperthreading, so that's good. So it's like a Ryzen 5 2600X, slightly better IPC. That's not a bad system. What resolution do you plan on playing at? Damon says, I hear in the flesh, live and direct. These got a little bit of rhymes going on for us tonight. Good stuff. I mean, shout out to everybody if you was here. I'm not sure if it was last week's live stream, but the one prior to that where I was on there kicking a little bit of freestyles. That was fun times, right? But yeah, Plank says I'm building a PC. It has Core i5 104. Okay, same thing. Okay, and 3600 megahertz RAM on a Gigabyte Z490 motherboard and 650-watt power supply. Yeah, it's not a bad system at all. Not a bad system. Yeah, good stuff. What resolution do you play at, Planks? Is that for 1920 by 1080p or 2560 by 1440p? Let us know in the chat what resolution and what type of games you play. But with the warm up out the way, let's jump right into it. And let's talk about 3 ways you can get into PC gaming. Because here in the current climate and with everything that's going on now, consoles or the next generation of consoles, that is the Series, Xbox Series, and the PS5, they too are hard to find. Or if you're willing to pay scout prices, which is something we don't encourage around here, you can pay up to 45 to 50% more than it's worth at MSRP. But now is the time more than ever to consider jumping the ship and going with jumping the ship and playing on the PC platform. And if you're new or you're inexperienced and you're not quite sure where to start, right? Or what could be the best possible path for you to go on, one that suits your personal situation. We're going to talk about all that here in this live stream, right? Starting with using the good, better, best model, right? I'm not sure if you heard of it, but we've talked about it here on the channel before. The good, better, best model. So when it comes to getting into PC gaming, you have essentially 3 options, right? And these range from what could be considered a good approach to the best approach. Starting with the obvious, the good approach, and that's buy a pre-built PC, right? It starts there. You know, buying a pre-built PC normally for beginners, right? Or you can say the inexperienced. Everybody starts, and nobody's born knowing anything, right? We all start, we low and we grow, but you have to start somewhere. But normally, buying a pre-built is for beginners or those who may have physical limitations and they're unable to build, their PC. But it's a good way to start. A better way to start would be buying a custom pre-built PC, right? Now, for the uninitiated, those who are unable to build, this is a good approach for those who are unable to build. Sorry, but slightly more advanced. You want a slightly more advanced approach because you want more control over the parts you could put inside of the system. This is slightly different than just going all out and buying a pre-built PC that's already built versus going with a vendor, right? And picking your parts out and going with your build that way. But there are pros and cons to this as well. We're going to talk about that too a little bit more during this live stream. Plank says, I plan on playing on 1080p or 1440p. Okay. Well, with the 1660 Super, you're kind of cemented right in between those two resolutions. So either one of those resolutions would serve you well with that GPU. Maybe at 1440p, I would just be mindful of your settings. And I see you say you got to go. Sorry, but have a great day. I appreciate you hanging out and stopping by with us, Planks. PK. Good stuff. All right. But moving on, then you have the best approach, which is building it yourself. It's something that even though I offer, building PCs as a service here locally, it's what I recommend is that you build it yourself. It's the best way to get into PC gaming, right? Again, the good, better, best model. We're going to talk about, you're going to hear that a couple times in this live streams. But there are pros and cons to each one. But the process from beginning to end are relatively the same. They all start with research and system planning, regardless of the life path you chose or you choose. Right? We're going to consider these life paths, good, better, best. It's like which life path do you go on if you want to get into PC gaming. Now, there are some of you that are here on a live stream or here in the community, or very much could be here on the replay that have already built your system. You're comfortable with the process. You're a seasoned veteran in it, and that's fine. If you are here live with us, you can share some tips that maybe helped you overcome the fear of building yourself. Or if you're here on the replay, you can also drop a comment down. I want to start sharing them. I want to start sharing comments on the live stream that we come across during the week, because I have some really fantastic conversations with the community outside of the live streams. But yeah, excuse me. But yeah, pros and cons to each one. But essentially, they start the same way. It starts with researching your system. Rather, you are buying the pre-built PC, buying a custom built pre-built PC, or if you're built, especially if you're building it yourself, right? Especially if you're building it yourself. All have pros and cons. Now, which route could be the best one for you, right? Which one could be the best one for you? And if you're here in the chat and you're comfortable with telling us, please do share. What was your, how'd you get into PC gaming, right? What was your first system? Did you build it yourself? Did you get a pre-built PC? Did you buy a custom pre-built PC? Did you buy a used PC from, secondhand from another seller or what have you? If you're here right now in the chat, you can share that with us, or if you're here on the replay, share it down in the comment section below. But what life path could be the right direction for you, right? Well, starting with buying a pre-built PC. Buying a pre-built PC, and this is something we talked about on a few live streams ago, maybe 10 live streams ago. But buying a pre-built PC is as close to plug and play as you're going to get. That's one of the flexibilities that gaming on a console has to offer. You get your console, slice it out of the box, maybe not slice it out of the box, but open it up outside the box, plug in your HDMI, plug in your power, your power cord, get your controller charged up if you're on PlayStation, get your batteries in if you're on Xbox controller, and you can just fire up some games. That's all you got to do. You don't have to update drivers. You don't have to worry about updating Windows, getting your launchers installed or any of those things. You just sit down and you just go. So buying a pre-built is usually the best route to go if that is the direction, or is that the beginning you want to have with getting into PC gaming. All of the work is 100% done for you. The system is ready the moment you get it, right? But there are disadvantages to this. One of them is that they are almost always priced about 20 to 30% higher than what they would be if you just parted out each part and build it yourself. Now, you also have no say in the parts that are being used in the system, but the vendor does have to turn a profit. They do have to make money, and profit margins are usually thin with selling pre-built PCs, and usually quality is sacrificed in favor of improving those margins. You hear about the power supply woes and how vendors will choose power supplies that aren't fully adequate for the system, leaving you to maybe have to send your whole entire PC in for a repair should the power supply go wrong, and worst case scenario, ruin other parts in your system if it fails, which most modern systems or most modern motherboards do have fail safes, and power supplies too do have fail safes that come on board their components to prevent those things from happening. But yeah, you could buy a pre-built PC. They normally range in between the seven to $1,000 range, right, for a decent pre-built PC. And it's hard to measure decent, and by decent I mean it has it's a competent system, right? It's a satisfactory product. It's going to deliver the results you need either for your gaming, for your gaming needs, or if you're a content creator, right? Or even for your schoolwork. You may have different needs based off of your lifestyle. And sometimes here in 2021, I got to remember to say that. I almost said 2020, but here in 2021, most of us we're usually a mixture of all three of those things, right? Student, content creator, and PCs are definitely entertainment devices as much as they are tools. But yeah, you can buy a pre-built. It's plug and play. You get it, if you go to Best Buy or if you have one shipped to you, it comes to your door, ready to go. But you do, pay a higher price for that flexibility or that ease. Let me jump over to the chat. I see before Planks dipped out, he said, everybody like, follow, and activate notifications. Yes, definitely. If you have been receiving my notifications, a little trick that was recommended to me, try unsubscribing, but immediately resubscribing to the channel and hit the notification bell. The algorithm then will recognize that you do want all of my notifications. Juan says, have you subscribed to PewDiePie and Mr. Beast? I have not. I have not subscribed to PewDiePie and Mr. Beast, but I mean they're awesome creators, but not my kind of content, not my kind of cup of tea. But so, but yeah, disadvantages: you have no say in the parts being used, and quality is often sacrificed in favor of improving margins. But yeah, we're going to talk about different places you can go to get a pre-built PC, which one of them being Amazon. Like I recommend Amazon. They normally between iBuyPower and CyberPower PC, those two being some of the most recognizable and well-trusted brands to buy pre-built PCs from. But again, we're going to talk about that more in the live stream. So you have first step, you can buy, or first life path, you can buy a pre-built PC. The second life path you can go with is that you could buy a custom pre-built PC, right? Now, again, like we mentioned at the beginning of this live stream, not necessarily the same as, buying a pre-built PC outright. There are vendors that you can go with, right? That you can buy, they let you pick out the parts from all the way from the CPU, from the cooling to storage to the case to the power supply, what have you. You can pick out your parts, but again, there's a downside because it's an illusion. That's hey, Bad Habit. It's good to see you. Bad Habit says, "What's up, homies? 30 minutes late, but I'm here. Hey, better late than never, right? It's good to see you, Bad Habit. Thanks for stopping by for our weekly live stream. We're moving on. We're talking about three ways you can get into PC gaming. The first one we kind of touched on, buying a pre-built PC. It's one of the most common approaches. The second one, which is becoming more and more popular here, with the advent of affordable platforms like Ryzen and the AM4 socket and Ryzen first generation Zen and second generation or Zen Plus and Zen 2. But yeah, you have more control with buying a custom pre-built PC, and by more control, it's like the monkey's paw because there's a downside. You have limited choice, right? Now, this is because the vendor will will offer stock that's available to their disposal. And when you look at vendors like NZXT with their BLD service, for example, one of the most popular services to use, so I use them as an example. Um, they want you to use a lot of their products. They want you to use a lot of NZXT products, or even if you're going with a custom pre-built from CyberPower and you're picking your own parts, you're very much still locked into the parts that that particular vendor may have to offer at the time. So while you have more control over what goes inside the system, you're still very much limited by your choice. So it's almost like an illusion, right? It's almost like an illusion. So it's a it's a positive and a negative in my honest opinion. It's like if I wasn't comfortable, if I was into PC gaming and I was one of you, here on the live stream, excuse me, or here on the replay, and I want to get into PC gaming, but I'm uncomfortable with building, which we're going to jump into that with the third life path. Like I'm uncomfortable with building, but I don't necessarily want to buy a pre-built PC. I would fall somewhere in the middle of where I would want a little bit more choice into, what goes inside of the system, especially with your core components, which is your core components are your CPU, your GPU, and your motherboard, right? Those are the parts that you will almost certainly outgrow, right? Or will become the most underpowered the fastest. So even with buying a pre-built PC, a custom, even a custom pre-built PC, buying a pre-built PC or custom PC, you want to make sure you at least go with the fastest CPU possible. You can always upgrade your graphics card, but you want to at least try to pick the fastest CPU that you can with your budget. I see our moderator welcomes Bad Habit by saying welcome to the live stream. Definitely Bad Habit, or D says Bad Habit was good. You okay? Bad Habit says, yeah, the Damon, everything's good here so far. Thanks. The gods. Bad Habit says, I'm surprised gaming PC build companies are in business. It's just so much easier and probably cheaper to build your own. I mean, that's true, but where there's a need, there will, where there's a demand, there will be a company somewhere to fill that need. And I resonate with that. I totally agree with you, Bad Habit, because in this day and age, there's so much information on how to get started, how to build more than ever that you would think that it would welcome new builders all the time. But for some people, maybe they want to choose one of these alternate life paths, like buying a pre-built PC or buying a custom pre-built PC, as a way to just get their feet in the door and just get on the platform like altogether. Because as I jump into the third life path, right, and that's building one yourself, it's going to the research part of the entire process is going to be helpful for you, rather you buy a pre-built PC or buy a custom pre-built PC. If you're building one on your own, you almost certainly have already done your research and your due diligence to make sure that you're getting the most out of your components and that it's going to suit your needs. Chris says it's a matter of education, I believe. People fear something they don't know. Excuse me. And Bad Habit says, to me, it's somewhat silly to call up and say, please build me a gaming PC. I'll pay $2,500. That's crazy. Yeah, and to start with Chris's comment, where Chris says it's a matter of education, I believe, and that's true. I mean, people do fear what they do not understand, and it was something that I wouldn't say deterred me very on. It was more so because I believe to get into PC gaming, you had to have the best, right? You had to have a lot of money. That was what was my deterrent for the longest time, which is what this channel is, built upon. That you don't need the best to simply, enjoy the best. You can enjoy your games on a budget conscious, system, or a system that's on the higher end, because there's nothing wrong with enjoying, higher end hardware if you can budget for it, or it's within your budget and it's within your needs. But yeah, and then to add to Bad Habits comment, where Bad Habits says, to me it's silly. Some people call up and pay $2,500 to build a gaming PC, or more importantly, they'll pay that much. In my opinion, they'll pay that much for an already pre-built PC, to where they're listed on eBay. I kind of monitor. I keep my feet, my nose to the ground, and I'll follow eBay bids, or I'll watch eBay pre-builds to see what they sell for, and they do go. People are willing to pay that premium or to pay that price, but we do know there are benefits to building one yourself, and we're going to talk about that. Bad Habit says, I think my first PC took me 3 months to build, just because I was learning and figuring out what the parts I need. Yeah, but you know what, Bad Habit, kudos to you. Even if it took 3 months, could have took 6 months, could have took 7 months, but you know teach a person how to build a PC once, they could do it. They could do it over and over again, even if it takes more than a long time to learn. Which to me, 3 months isn't necessarily a long time, right? Because the next time you're ready to do it, it won't necessarily take you 3 months. But yeah, all good. It's all good. And Thunder, I say my son's on the chat. Says, hey, hey, it was good to see you, Thunder. And Chris says, like I said, you can spend some cash for cheap PC and learn on it. Yeah, I mean, there's awesome channels. There's one here, there's one here inside the lab, right? That you can learn a great deal of the process, from updating the BIOS to installing Windows to troubleshooting your PCs. You get like black screens, or if your PC starts up and it immediately turns off, or if you're getting B sides or G sides. There's so much helpful content on YouTube, for more popular and larger tech channels than myself that could help you along the way, that could help inform you and build up your confidence to just jump in and like I believe it's like Chris said, just get your PC, just something to build on and learn from, or learn the process, get comfortable with upgrading and changing components. Chris says all PCs are almost the same. Essentially, yeah. Yeah. I mean, install your CPU. After you install the CPU, with respect that, Intel and AMD use different type of sockets. After that part, after you install the CPU, all the rest of the steps are essentially the same, right? Your memory, your cooler, your graphics card, your SATA cable, your storage unit, plug in your fans, plug in your input output, your I/O, your sound, USB 3.0 header. You plug in all those things; they are essentially the same on all systems, right? And Bad Habit says my first PC built from 11 years ago. I'm looking at it right now. I was using a PS3, then Battlefield was coming out, and I was decided to build a PC to play it instead of a PS3. Yeah, I really loved my PS3. That was probably one of my last generation favorite consoles. I played the PS3 a lot, and at the time I had a computer, but it was to play the Matrix Online at that time. So I really played like exclusive PC games on my PC at the time, and just stuck to my PS3 for like your mainstream games, and my Xbox 360 at the time for games like Gears and console exclusives. But yeah, so but moving right on to the subject of the show, all good stuff though. Keep the questions going, keep the live chat live, and please feel free to share your experiences with any of these life paths that we're talking about and we're discussing here on this live show. And also, we're gonna not forget our replay friends and fam. Do be sure if you made it this far and you're here on the replay, do be sure to share in your experiences as well, or with which life path you went on to get into PC gaming. I'm really curious to know. Love reading your thoughts and engaging with the community. But as and it remain it I also want to add that with buying a custom pre-built PC, the same rule applies, if you will, with buying a normal pre-built PC. You're going to pay more than you would for the system if you parted it out, right? If and again, you're locked into the parts that that particular vendor may want to offer. But they too normally will have build fees. Like I believe NZXT's build fee is $100. And if you're looking to go with CyberPower, they may have other fees associated with it too. That's going to certainly drive up the cost of the system. Now, this is, it's in my opinion that this starts to diminish the value on the parts once you start paying more than what they're worth, because then it puts you in a price tier, or puts you in a price category, right? That you're looking at parts that are considered to be upgrades, right? If you're paying in excess of $600 to $700 for your motherboard CPU, but it's say like a Ryzen 5 3600, you could be looking at ninth generation or 10th generation Intel CPU at that point, just simply because you're paying more than what it's worth. So that's something to look out for. Definitely something to look out for with the fees and taxes. Those things, they're really going to drive it up. But now, if you really want to go the high speed, the high speed way, if you will, that is build it yourself, right? Build it yourself. It's what we're talking about. It's what Chris has been sharing, and Bad Habits with what we've been talking about here in the live chat if you just joined us. And that's build the PC yourself. Arguably probably one of the best life paths you can choose with getting into PC gaming. Now, you do have to overcome the fear factor of the process being hard, and accept it for what it is. It's intimidating. It's not hard, right? A rock is hard. Concrete road is hard. There's no overcoming that. But building a PC is just intimidating. You can overcome that. Like some of us have mentioned here in the chat, educate yourself. There are tons of helpful videos right here on YouTube or even right here on this channel that could help familiarize you with the process. Research your parts, their compatibility, their functionality. You could save you could save a lot of money and time. I know it seems a little redundant because of the research you have to put in, but again, it goes back to what I was saying about regardless if you were going with a pre-built PC or a custom pre-built PC, it's still very important to research your parts, understand their functionality and their features that they have, and that way you are, you know, taking full advantage of your system, whether that's a pre-built PC or a custom pre-built PC. Bad Habit says my only problem now, if you can call it a problem, is when I build, I want to customize it as much as I can, which usually ends up costing more. Thank God for the 30-day return policy from Amazon. Yeah, I mean it's good that it's good that merchants and brands have solid return policies, and it's also good that it's one of the things that make PC gaming so awesome, right? Again, we say it all the time. Consoles have purpose, right? Consoles have a purpose, but PCs have character. It's one of those things that you can add character to your PC by, adding custom cables or, RGB lights, because hey, we all love that RGB, right? That habit also says I'll buy something, and if it doesn't look the way I pictured it, I'll return it and get something else. That's awesome. I mean, where do you go? Is that through Amazon as well, or through Micro Center? Me personally, I hate having to send things back order offline. It just feels so tied up. I'm like, I would just rebuy it and wait for the refund because I don't want to I don't want to hold up the vision. I don't want to hold up the dream. But yeah, build it yourself. You definitely have to overcome the fear factor that is. With the process with being hard. No, it's not hard. It's intimidating. But it's easier to also upgrade your system in the future because you're so versed in the parts that went inside your system, or even fix your system should you run into any issues. Bad Habit says, "Oh yeah, RGB all the way." Yeah, I like RGB. Rather it's the rainbow puke. Yeah, I said what I said. The rainbow puke is what it is. But I am a fan of solid colors too. Like my editing rig, Snow White. It's more so like a black and white theme. There's really no RGB involved with it, but Core Shredder does have a lot of rainbow puke going on. So yeah. And Chris says, as for me, it's always a price to performance, no RGB and that kind of things. Yeah, and that's perfectly fine too. Again, it comes down to choice, and what makes this hobby so fun to be a part of is that we all essentially could use a lot of the same parts, but depending on how much character we want to put into our PCs, they could very much still look really different. Bad Habit says Micro Center is 45 minutes away from me. When I go to the city, yes, I will stop at Micro Center, but since I do not drive as much, Amazon is my main thing. Okay. Yeah, I like Amazon because I mean, Amazon has everything. I like ordering my books from Amazon and some parts that are harder to find on eBay. Um, and I'm a little farther. I'm a little further from Micro Center myself, but it's about 45 minutes to an hour away from me. And Chris says I'm looking at my 165 panel no PC. It's 165 hertz panel, not at PC itself. Yeah, I mean we can't forget about how important monitors are. And we're going to touch briefly on monitors in this live stream, but monitors are one of the most important parts you can consider for your system. I wanted to switch back here to kind of drop that, to make that mention because it's something. Well, even when I consult people who want to get into PC gaming, I leave out the monitor towards the end of the conversation because I know they didn't account for it. I'm like, hey, you say my budget is $1,000. That's fine. Is that $1,000 with your monitor, or is that $1,000 for your system? Because if you're going to build a $1,000 PC, you're likely in the higher end market or the higher end segment for a monitor, right? Either that's a high refresh rate 1080p panel, or a high refresh rate 1440p panel. You are in the upper echelon of gaming monitors when you're building a system at that price point. And it's like, do you want is your budget for your system really $600 to $700, and you want to leave a little bit of leeway for your console and makes them reconsider the whole entire project after that. And Bad Habits is a decent gaming monitor. It's very affordable now. You can get a decent one for $200. Totally, totally agree. We did a live stream, which Bad Habit, I think you was actually there. You were actually present for. We did a live stream where we talked about gaming monitors and how and how affordable they've become. And I read an article yesterday about, I believe it's Asus, just to name a few. We have some affordable 4K IPS monitors coming out here pretty soon too. So that's interesting. I like to see 1440p become a little bit more popular. It is a decent resolution to game at. It really is. I game at 3440 by 1440p, with a little bit of 4K here in between, depending on the game, right? But but yeah, definitely you can find a decent gaming monitor for around $200. If you're interested in here on the live stream or if you're here on the replay, you can search our live stream catalog and find that live stream. I listed a few gaming monitors over on Amazon that I recommend, depending on your configuration or your system. And now jumping back to the topic of this live stream, and that is, what are some? We talked about the three different life paths, right? We talked about which could be suitable for your situation, and using a good, better, best model. What could be a feasible approach for you to get into PC gaming? Rather that's buying a pre-built PC because you don't want to build, maybe you don't have the tools, right? Maybe you don't want to do the research. Maybe you just want your PC, you want to sit down, you want to play some Fortnite, you want to play some Apex, PUBG, whatever these kids are playing these days. I've been playing a lot of Fortnite here recently. But and then you have the better approach, which that's buying a custom pre-built PC, knowing and picking your core components and what's going inside, getting the most value for your money. That's important too. It's very important. And then the third one, what, but building it yourself. Now, could you, where could you go to maybe, you know, to start with each one of those life paths? Well, starting with buying a pre-built PC. We got the good old Amazon, right? You can't, it's hard to ignore how popular Amazon is. We just talk about it in the chat. Bad Habit says a decent gaming monitor is very affordable now. Chris says, yeah, it depends on where you live. Very important too, because not everybody enjoys the same prices. But here in the States, you can find a pretty decent 1080p 144 hertz monitor. And even 1440, especially like a 1440p 144 hertz monitor, they've really come down in price. I like to see 4K monitors come down in price, or maybe they offer us like 100 hertz 4K monitors. That'd be awesome to make the jump from 60 to 100 hertz, especially with some of the upcoming, hardware we have coming out, some of the upcoming GPUs. But yeah, I understand. We got you, Krista. It's not affordable for all. You may pay a little bit more than what we pay. Would you say it's like four times more? Hey, that really sucks. It really does suck. You really have to you likely really have to compromise in most of your buying situations, I imagine. But using the good, better, best model, once again, the good way for you to get into PC gaming, buy I can't talk tonight. Buy a pre-built gaming PC. Now I just jumped over to Amazon. Keywords are super important. No matter if you're on YouTube, whatever social media platform you're on or online platform you are, keywords are important, especially if you're looking for a pre-built under a certain price. But for sakes of simplicity, I just searched for a pre-built gaming PC and automatically was hit with not too bad of an option here, like this one from CyberPower PC. It's $800 flat. Now, first of all, 8 gigabytes ain't really going to do much for you these days, so you figured you'd want at least 16 gigabytes, but everything else isn't too bad of a combination. The 1660 Super, then all the way up to $1,400, which is with a 2070 Super, and a 3000X, one for $699 with their Ryzen 5 3600 and a 5500 XT CPU we were just talking about, and only 8 gigabytes of RAM. So as you can see, iBuyPower and even CyberPower, they are skipping on RAM to kind of accommodate for price. The under $900 gaming PC we built before the end of the year was about $800, $800 to $829. The GPU fluctuation really threw a wrench in that build because the budget and definitely was $800. So I really tried to stay underneath that. But towards the end, we were able to get the 1660 Ti for about $329, which is still about $60 more than what it is at MSRP because its MSRP is $269, I believe. So not too bad for a pre-built PC. Uh, I mean, you have choices, right? One here for $800, and what I recommend is again, trying to get a system that has a fast CPU. I can't stress that enough. It's going to help you no matter what resolution you play at, believe it or not. Even at 1440p, 4K not so much as you're highly GPU dependent. D says heading out for the night. Thanks for the info. Be easy and peace out. Thanks, D. I definitely appreciate you hanging out for the live stream. You're gonna miss the unboxing, but it's all good. Definitely do appreciate you hanging out. I'm gonna check out your live stream tomorrow. Chris says you should check if it's 2x 4 GB or 1 8 GB. That's important too. And what Chris means is that if it's a single channel RAM or if it's a dual channel RAM, is it two 4 GB sticks or is it one 8 GB stick? Which in most cases, it's likely going to be a single 8 GB stick, but it is important to know uh, the configuration and if you're able to read and ask questions. As you can see in the picture, I wouldn't always recommend going off of what you see in the picture too. It's not always representative of what you may receive. But here in the picture, it's a single stick of RAM, and yeah, it's just something to consider. But chances are what you see in the picture may or may not be what you get when it comes to your door. You go to pick it up from your store. If you go to a Best Buy, because Best Buy does sell iBuy powers and CyberPower PCs, you can always ask questions right then and there. The the sales guys and gals, they should know. They should know. They should be able to answer these questions. But yeah, so not bad. As you can see, you have choices, you have options. Here's one for $499 with the GTX 650. It's interesting. It must be from a private seller. But yeah, and then you can also go to CyberPower directly and buy a PC from them. You don't have to necessarily, get it from Amazon. You can go directly to CyberPower PC and get one from them. Um, but I would expect to pay anywhere between at least $700 to $1,000 again, like I mentioned earlier, for a decent pre-built PC. And you want to look for one that at least has a dedicated graphics card, indefinitely, right? SSD almost certainly a plus. It's going to help you with fast loading times, fast system responsiveness, fast boot times, just overall faster experience. I see. Yeah, Ahmad, thanks D for dropping in, and hanging out. Thunder says I'm going to head out. I may lurk around later. Okay, Thunder, appreciate you hanging out. And Patrick, it's good to see you again. Patrick says hello, peeps. What's happening, Patrick? It's good to see you. We're talking about 3 ways you can get into PC gaming, right? 3 different life paths you can take. We talked about buying a pre-built PC using the good, better, best model. It's good to buy a pre-built PC. Better to buy a custom pre-built PC, which is what we're talking about, which we're going to talk about here next, and then building one yourself. But we were going over some places you can go to, take action in any one of those life paths, especially if you're ready now or you're getting ready to buy a PC or you're exploring the option of maybe jumping to the PC because PS4 and the PS4 and Xbox One, they're really showing their ages, and we're seeing that now also with Cyberpunk 2077, right? With the game being almost unplayable on the consoles. And the last game I tried playing on my Xbox One was Mad Max, and that game was unplayable. Where I was getting frame rate drops in the single digits, and like fighting. If you ever played that game, it plays like Arkham Asylum. But I was getting double digit frame drops fighting no more than like 2 or 3 enemies or just driving the car across the map, and like the frame rate was dropping like crazy. It's what made me want to get back into modern PC gaming because I couldn't take it anymore. It was ruining the experience, and that's so important for gamers. The experience is important. Bad Habit says so. These are new builds from Amazon. Not all of them, right? Not all of them, but if you wanted to assure that you were getting a new build, a new system, I would verify and check the listing. As we saw, one system had a GTX 650. That's likely not going to come from, a new. That's likely a private seller. It's likely a private seller. But you can always verify if it's new, and if you're unsure, you can always go directly to CyberPower. Like it says here, visit the CyberPower store and buy one directly from CyberPower. Bad Habit says, should we be blaming the failure of Cyberpunk on the older consoles though, or should they have made the game to be able to run on those systems properly? Man, that's a good question. That's a good question, and I talked about this briefly on last week's show that Cyberpunk or CDPR, they were contractually obligated to release the game on all platforms at the same time. And none of their partners were going to allow CDPR to release it only on PC. And CDPR said the game is built for the PC, right? It's almost built to be a PC exclusive, if you will. But from day one, they marketed the game as being available on all consoles. So that's what they had. That's the benchmark they had to hit. Did they achieve that? No. It's in my opinion that the game is over ambitious. CDPR tried to develop a game that simply could not exist with current hardware out right now, and they likely should have just pushed the game back. I think the the hate, the receptive would have been not as bad, if you will, if they would have pushed the game back as opposed to launching a broken product. Even on PC, it was not great. The elevator bug, I too experienced. I experienced the elevator bug. And if you played the game past the prologue, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you've seen videos on it and you heard, the elevator bug being talked about, I ran into the elevator bug too on PC. And it was definitely game breaking. Like I had to dial back my save. And that was the first time I experienced having to save and save multiple times. That's just one moment that can come to mind. There's been other game breaking bugs that I've come across during my gameplay. I haven't had some of the funny nudity bugs, if you will, but the game breaking bugs are definitely there, and the game is not very optimized. It just really isn't. Now, that's two things I attribute Cyberpunk's quote failures, if you will, because it was a financial success, but it wasn't received as well as I think that CDPR was hoping. They really CDPR messed up in my opinion when they prevented reviewers from being able to show their own gameplay. That's really shady practices. That's really shady practices, and it's indicative that they knew that the game wasn't going to perform well. If you've watched, go back and watch their CEO's video where he addresses some of those issues. But it's in my opinion, I watched it too. I didn't create any content on it because it's not really we're not so much gaming centric, right? As a as a separate topic, but he didn't address the cut content. Okay, that's big. He didn't address the fact that the police system was done at the last minute. It was implemented at the last minute. Their developers knew that there were bugs that weren't fixed in the game. The investors wanted it launched by holiday. Although it had made its money in pre-orders, they likely should have pushed the game back to like March. I really think they should have pushed the game back to March. But, you know, uh, it is what it is on the older consoles. They tried to make a game that was too ambitious. I really do. I mean, it looks good. It's a very shallow game once you take away the lights, right? In the graphic presets, it's a very shallow game. It's a nice city that you can't really do much in, but run around and drive around with some awesome tunes. But I am enjoying it. I'm trying to get to the 100-hour mark before I can provide any formal commentary on it, and also wait for the future patches to hit the game to make it better, because I'm a little upset too about the cut content myself. Chris says, I believe the game was building too long. The first trailer was 2013. They changed the rules during the game. Imagine making a game in 2013 and you have to make it for PCs in 2022. Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, if you go back and you look at CDPR's CEO, and what he said, where he said that they didn't see the same issues that gamers were running into. How could you not? They were evident. That's an ignorant statement in my honest opinion. But if now they claim that the game didn't officially start production until 2016, although it was announced in 2012. Angry Joe did a very interesting video about that because he went to Poland and he in the studio, and there was a section of the studio that they wouldn't allow him to see because the game was in production. So who knows? But yeah, the game took a little while to come out. And them saying, well, we'll release the game when it's ready. They said the game was playable in January. Definitely not true. The game is not playable in its current form, and it really sucks for PS4 and Xbox One gamers who have to play the game in such potato form. But the older hardware is starting to show its age. PS4, Xbox One, that hardware is starting to show its age. It just really sucks that PS5s and Xbox Series S's and X's aren't available right now. I mean, they're hard to find. But yeah, like Chris says, imagine making a game in 2013 for PCs in 2020, or for consoles in 2020 that what came out in 2013. I believe the PS4 and Xbox One came out in 2013, and so you imagine it was likely based off hardware that were relevant in the 2011, 2012. So yeah, it's almost 10-year-old hardware. That's a little hard to pull off, especially with the overall scale of the game and how ambitious it is. But yeah, yeah, the game, Cyberpunk 2077, not a bad game, but it ain't great either. And that's not saying a lot given how long, it was in production. But yeah, I still recommend it though. I recommend it, especially when it's on sale. Not at $60. Not at $60. But yeah, buy a pre-built PC. Be mindful of your, like Chris and Bad Habit mentioned. Be mindful of, RAM configurations and what all you're getting in your system. Okay, remember, this is the good approach to take with getting into PC gaming, and that's buying a pre-built. Now, what's better, and you want to go with buying a custom PC, or buying a custom pre-built, again, NZXT's BLD service. Now, depending on where you live, because that's important too. But depending on where you live, you may have vendors, private vendors or smaller vendors who are willing to maybe do this as a service, as to where outside of going with NZXT, say you don't want an NZXT case, as I'm going to show you here really fast, that you're super limited in the parts you can pick when going this life path. But if there are vendors or builders in your area, you may be able to hit them up and say, hey, look, this is my budget. I have about $800 I'm working with. I want to, I want a gaming PC, and a good builder would ask you, what your needs are and what you expect to get out of your system, what kind of games you play, you know, what resolution, what resolution and what refresh rate you're targeting. A good vendor would ask you these questions and help you make, responsible decisions as far as buying your parts. But if you wanted to go with a more professional route and you wanted to go with a better approach with getting into PC gaming, you can go to NZXT's BLD service as an option. iBuyPower offers a similar build option too, but from my research, they are a little bit more costly. But if you got the coin and you want to, play around with different configurations, you can walk through iBuyPower, and you can walk through NZXT's BLD service too. Definitely, you're not committed to make to buy or anything like that. But again, like we mentioned earlier in this live stream, it's an illusion of choice, because as we start here, let me just pick a game really fast. Let me pick Doom Eternal. Let me pick 1440p. Let me pick my price. I'm gonna build my own, starting with $1,000. Now, if I want to say change the CPU, which I think it was an i5 9400. We'll go down here, go to CPU. Now you have five options, five choices: an i5 9400F, a 10400, a 10700K, which is an 8-core, a 9900K, and a 10850K, which is a 10-core 20-thread CPU. So again, you have more choices, but your options are limited. You have only these five Intel CPUs to choose from, and you are well within their, and your budget has to be within their pricing tiers. The same thing with graphics cards too. But all of these, I'm pretty sure, not bad choices for most of us, right? 6800 XT, RTX 3080, a 3060 Ti, all decent, reasonable options. But again, what if none of these are your first choice? What if they put, what if they put you way over your budget? Now, I know I said $1,000, but let's say you have $1,500 to work with. Right now, this system has a 5700 XT as it stands, so you could bump up to say at RTX 3060 Ti for slightly more performance. That popped up, which I like BLD servers. They tell you when they recommend when you need to switch out your GPU or your power supply unit. But yeah, I mean, so you have some flexibility, you have some choice, but not a lot. Okay, even same thing with memory. You have 5 options. Okay, memory that they choose, no Corsair, which Corsair makes really good memory modules. Same thing with cooling, all NZXT cooling properties with the exception of this air cooler, Deep Cool, the Gamix. But again, if you want to go with an AIO, you have to choose one of NZXT's. Again, no Corsair. And same thing with the case. The case is especially, in my opinion, one of the harder decisions to bite because I'm personally not a fan of NZXT's H series cases, but I mean they're fine, especially when you're looking at the Elite with its RGB fans in the front. Hey, we talked about RGB. I remember one of my first video, I'm like, "Are you down with RGB?" But yeah, so you're limited to NZXT's cases, so that's the downside in my opinion. It's an illusion of choice. But yeah, then you have the extra fees. You have your build fees, which NZXT's is about $100, which is factored into the price. But this is quite expensive. But one of the better ways to get into PC gaming, you have so much more control over what goes inside of your system, right? All the way down to your motherboard, which thank goodness they don't limit it to NZXT's motherboards. You have some choices from Asus, ASRock, MSI, Gigabyte, at least the big four you can pick from. Again, you can switch up and mess around with your prices a little bit, and it gives you a hint of what kind of FPS you can expect with that configuration. And Chris says that they being CDPR, they should learn their lesson. I hope. I mean, yeah, it remains to be seen, and it's in my opinion that now CDPR has to work to gain back that trust that they held, that the community revered them and put them on this pedestal for the longest time. So yeah, I don't know. It sure puts me in doubt with their next project. Rather that's more DLC for Cyberpunk 2077 or The Witcher 4 or whatever they have coming out next down their pipeline. We'll just have to see. I'm still playing The Witcher 3 anyway, so I'm in no hurry for their next project. But yeah, so NZXT's BLD service, good option to choose. They ship internationally. All their systems come with a warranty too, so it is a better approach to going with getting into PC gaming, right? The better approach, the better option. And then for building yourself, rather that's new or used, because essentially the same thing goes hand in hand. If you're buying a used CPU, if you're buying a used motherboard, or if you're going with a new motherboard and a used CPU, maybe you're going with a hybrid system. You have more control over your budget when going with a system that you build yourself. A few good places to start with, that you can use to help you along the process. Some of you may or may not know, PC Part Picker is one of the most popular websites to go to for new and experienced builders. Rather you're trying to get more information on the part, PC Part Picker has a excellent uh, power supply wattage calculator. It gives you a rough guesstimate of what your system's power draw may be with your components. It also lets you search in compatibility mode, where if you pick a certain motherboard, it'll only list coolers and CPUs that are compatible with that motherboard. So it's really straightforward and a really helpful tool. Now, depending on where you live, buying parts online can be a little tricky, right? Because we have global shortages and other things that we're dealing with. So finding parts online can prove to be a little difficult, and more so specifically your core parts, your CPU, your GPU. Motherboards, not so much, but CPUs and GPUs, indefinitely. They're getting harder and harder to come by. Though, like we mentioned, places like Micro Center and Best Buy and even Amazon have just recently stocked some Ryzen 5 2600s. I'm going to go here because I believe I pulled it up. Okay, no. All right. But, you know, Micro Center, Best Buy, Amazon, you can find Ryzen 5 2600s and 3600s reasonably priced. Okay. And you could either go with the B550 motherboard. This is what I recommended. I think it was Planks. I think his name was Planks. This is what I recommended the path that Planks goes with their system. So go with a 3600 and a B550 chipset. But Amazon, eBay, if you're looking to have parts shipped to you all over the place, all over the world, if you will, those are two really good sites to start with to choose from, especially eBay, because they offer decent buyer protections. You do run the risk of being hosed and scammed. We talked about that in last week's live stream. If you want to watch that replay, you can always find the playlist down in the description box below. You can give that live stream a watch because we talked about the pros and cons to buying new and used parts and some things to look out for. But Amazon, eBay, they're great places to look for and start if you're in the US. Craigslist too. You can find some gems on Craigslist. Don't sleep on Craigslist, right? And Chris says there is one advantage. If you buy pre-built, you don't have to look for compatible RAMs. It could be hard in these times depending on the motherboard, and that is definitely true. I mean, what I recommend is that you start with the start with your motherboard's QVL, its quality vendor list, and start from there to try to find optimized RAM for your system. But you're right with going with the vendor with the pre-built, the RAM was already likely tested for the motherboard. But most pre-built motherboards they have like lower end 300 series, like A320 motherboards or B360 motherboards. And inside of them. So you're really limited on what RAM is compatible, if you will, if that makes sense. But it can be hard. It can be hard. RAM prices are also creeping up too. So scary times. Bad Habit says Best Buy worst place to buy gaming PC parts. They could be a little high. I brought my 1650 Super from a Best Buy here in Delaware, and I paid 100. I paid MSRP for it, $169. But right now, everything is just all the shelves are empty at Best Buy, and all their stock says zero all the time online. It's menacing. But but yeah, you can always hit up a Micro Center if they too are in your area. It's what I recommend Micro Center if you can. Micro Center you can find some really good prices. Micro Center doesn't ship, so that's one of the reasons why they're a viable option or a great place to buy most of your parts and everything else too you may need to complete your build. So that could be extra cables, that could be display ports, keyboard, mouse, headphones, you could also choose from a wide range of gaming monitors because it is key to build or buy around your gaming monitor. Something I preach about a lot here on the channel. The single most underrated component to any system, and that is your gaming monitor. So yeah, but sticking to or as close to your budget, and by that I mean the most amount of coin you're willing to invest in your game experience is crucial to getting into PC gaming, right? Remember, decision is the ultimate power. Any one of these life paths can lead you to the pinnacle of gaming that is on the PC platform. One of the best ways to enjoy video games, in my honest opinion, is on a PC. Games are developed on computers, for computers, and consoles third, as we can see with Cyberpunk 2077. Perfect example. That game was developed and designed likely on high-end hardware for high-end hardware, not necessarily low-end hardware like consoles, because the game doesn't run well on that hardware, on those hardware. Bad Habit says I am disabled when it comes to gaming with keyboard and mouse. I use an Xbox controller. Listen, fam, so do I. I use an Xbox controller for for immersive games. I play Cyberpunk 2077 with the controller. The Witcher with the controller. There's only really one game I play, and that's recreationally, not when I'm testing. When I'm benchmarking, I almost always try to play with a keyboard and mouse. Um, but when I'm playing recreationally, like I'm playing for myself, almost most of the games I play, I use a controller. I use a controller. Fortnite is the only game I use a keyboard and mouse to play. And Call of Duty Warzone, every once and again, I use a keyboard and mouse. But Fortnite, I am better with the keyboard and mouse than I am with the controller. But all the other games just feel better, and they're just easier for me to, to handle inside of the game using a controller versus a keyboard and mouse, especially when I'm driving. Although I found it a little bit more fun to use a keyboard to drive playing GTA 5, I will say. But yeah. But that's awesome stuff. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to stick to what works for you. Like Bad Habit says, you got to use an Xbox controller. Use an Xbox controller. You can buy a wireless dongle, right from Amazon for 25 bucks if you want to go with a wireless controller like this one here. You just plug it in and pair it, and you're good to go. Right? Mine used batteries, and this is the Xbox One controller that came with the very first Xbox. I've been using it all this time. My Xbox died, right? My Xbox died in a thunderstorm. It was plugged into the wall, fam. Normally you don't do that. You should have those things plugged into a surge protector, especially because the power brick on the Xbox One is essentially like a power. It functions like a power supply. It keeps the charge even though the console is turned off. But we had somebody had hit a transformer here in my community, and it caused us to lose power, the neighborhood to lose power. My Xbox was plugged into the wall, and it just zoop, shut out. And when I went to go plug it back on, it just wouldn't come on. So the controller is the only thing I had to salvage from that. So I was able to keep that because the Xbox One controller just feels comfortable to me. And I've been a long time Sony fan here. So but I definitely prefer the Xbox One controller when I'm playing my single player games. Darkness Plays says, "Hi, Darkness Plays, what's happening? Welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining us this Saturday. You came near the end where we're in our wrap up segment, but you came at a perfect time because I still have, we still got to unbox this here. Still got to we still got to see what's inside of the box. Still got to see what's inside of there, but we're talking about three different ways you can get into PC gaming using the good, better, best model. We talked about, it's good to buy a pre-built PC if you're inexperienced and you just want a plug and play situation, or you just want to just receive your system, plug in your components or plug in your peripherals and get in and play some games. It's good to buy a pre-built PC. A better approach would be to buy a custom pre-built PC. That's where you go with a build service from like NZXT or CyberPower, and you have more control of the parts that go inside of your system. But the best approach is to build your PC yourself. And right when you came on, we were talking about that. I had said that decision is the ultimate power, okay? And that any one of these life paths can lead you on that pinnacle of gaming, right? And that's gaming on the PC platform. That is where it's at. That is the best way to enjoy games, the best way to enjoy this hobby. So, yeah, Darkness Plays, you came in at an iconic time because we are near the hour and a half part segment of the show. And now I want to say I am ready to unbox this bad boy to show you what's inside of here. Before I do, does anybody want to take a guess as to what's inside of this box? Take a wild guess. All right, if you take a wild guess, I get our opening tool here. Our opening tool. It's a knife. That's our opening tool. Armand says, "Open that box." Yeah, I mean, I know what's inside of the box, right? But this is my first time seeing it. It came in on Tuesday, and it's just sat. Like my cat has spent more time with the box than I have. Like it's been his personal perching stand since Tuesday, since this particular component came in the mail. But yeah, if you have an idea what's inside, do tell me. If not, I'm just gonna jump right in and open it because, like I promised, like I said, was something we would do towards the end of this live stream. I'm just gonna jump right into it. Let me see. Can't see my address. Darkness Play says, "I'm getting a new keyboard. Do you know some good keyboards?" I mean, Corsair makes really good keyboards, and so does Cooler Master with their K55 and K70, I believe. It is keyboards. It depends if you want mechanical or membrane, if you want RGB or not RGB. You have a wide range of options. Excuse me. Chris says maybe some GPU. That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay. I tell you what, maybe it is a GPU. What GPU? What GPU do you think it is? I know we're operating on delay, but tell me what GPU you think it is. But Darkness Plays, you can check Amazon for some pretty good keyboards. All depends too on how much you're willing to spend. They cost anywhere up to as much as $169 for a decent Cherry mechanical keyboard. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think is inside of here? As I open it up, let me see. You tell me. Keep your guesses going. I'm gonna jump right into it. Okay. We got we got a lot of forgot what are these things called here. Forgot the name of them. But there's a lot of them. They're pain in the butt to clean up. We'll try to keep them in the box. And they're gonna come out. They're gonna come out either way. So okay. All right. So let me put this down here. All right. They all fell out. Chris says, I hope an AMD one. I hope an AMD one too, Chris. I hope an AMD one. But are you ready? Are you ready? Let's see. No, not an AMD one. It's oh geez. What is that? I don't know if the camera, if you could see that. Right? RTX 3090 ROG Strix Gaming, one of my favorite series or favorite brands in the Strix lineup, and that is the ROG Strix. Now, RTX 3090, not my first choice, right? And let's see if I can pop it. It's sealed, right? It's brand new, sealed shut, as you can see here. Haven't even opened it yet. Not my first choice, which I don't know if we should do a separate live unboxing where I just unbox it. I mean, unboxings, they're not the most interesting thing, but I thought about saving it for separate. I just want to open it up and get the testing. Bad Habit says AMD for life. What? All exclamation points. You got a 3090. Yeah, and guess what, fam? Asus did not send me one. Asus did not send me one. I wish. I'm not big enough yet, but one day we'll get there. One day we get there where they'll be willing to send me these products. But yeah, I was gonna open it. It's it's sealed shut, sealed tight. Wasn't my first choice. There are the 6900 XTs and 6800 XTs will be out of stock longer than the RTX 3000 series graphics cards, especially ones that take GDDR6 memory. Now, the 3090, I originally did not have my eyes set on the 3090, and even when I did the community tab, let's put this here so you can maybe see it. The community tab post I put on there, where I said, what graphics card would you be interested in me doing the most testing if I could get my hands on it? And for the record, I was trying to get my hands on all of them, right? With the 3060, when the 3060 Ti launched, I had my hands on the trigger button and found out that they were on eBay faster than they were available. 12:01 midnight, day one launch. They were not there. I had my eyes on the 3060 Ti, could not get it. RTX 3080 didn't really make as much sense because I also have an RTX 2080 Ti that I use in my editing system. So really the AMD graphics card that I have my eyes really set on, Bad Habit, because I really still very much am a big fan of what AMD is doing on both the graphics and CPU side. And the RTX 3090 aside, with we're going to do a whole lot of heavy testing to really find out who this GPU really is for. Like, I do game at a high resolution, 3440 by 1440p. 24 gigabytes though is still overkill for the amount of VRAM, even for that resolution. Now, Cyberpunk, though, I will say, I've seen it run in excess of up to like 11 to 12 gigabytes of VRAM if it's available. Excuse me, when you have all of the system settings turned up. And Bad Habit says, yeah, you got a 3090. I can't believe it. But you gotta know people, right? You gotta know people. And Bad Habit says, yes, do a separate unboxing. Yeah, I thought about it. Like, I thought about doing a pop-up live stream or just doing a normal VOD where I just sit down and we'll talk more about the specs before we start benchmarking. I've been unsure of what CPU configuration I want to test this graphics card in. At higher resolutions, you're less CP dependent, but either a 9900K, or we're also throwing core shredder with a 1920X 12 core 24 thread CPU paired with this GPU, and also see what kind of performance we can get of 2560 by 1440p. But yeah, the 3090 wasn't necessarily my first choice. It was a forced choice, if you will. Originally, my I wanted to kind of get more than one graphics card, but they're just sitting back and waiting really doesn't help with the content or the direction I want to go in 2021 with creating content. This GPU certainly isn't what I would recommend you buy. The price to performance on this graphics card is absolutely horrible. But going forward, as the channel evolves, like we mentioned in our end of year live stream, where I said you'll see the content slowly becoming better, where I want to start editing in 4K, improve the stream qualities. I invested in a caption card, so I have a 4K HD Elgato 4K HD 60 capture card that instead of using NVIDIA Shadowplay to capture the benchmarks, I'm going to use a capture card, and also have a 1080p Elgato capture card for our 1080p live streams and gaming sessions. So, I mean, this graphics card is essentially my new workhorse. I originally was going to wait on a 3080 Ti, right? Have with a 2080 Ti, um, you know, I said the 3080 Ti would make the most sense, especially if it was shipping with 16 gigabytes of RAM. I see Spider Rule says I'm back, but Chris says, or Bad Habit says yes to a separate unboxing and definitely will. Chris says I promised myself I will not buy an Nvidia GPU because my panel is not G-Sync compatible, but I have FreeSync and I have a GTX 1060. Is your panel one of the very select few panels that pass NVIDIA's and pass NVIDIA's testing to be considered G-Sync compatible? Like, are you able to enable G-Sync on your panel with your 1060? 1060 still incredible is an incredible card. 1060 is something I want to do more videos on, especially with replacing thermal paste. I saw recently it's one of the most popular GPUs on Steam right now. That's a la the Steam survey. Spider Rule says I'm back. LOL. Did I miss the unboxing? Not necessarily. I mean, you missed the like we did, cut open the box, but inside was brand new RTX 3090. Again, not my first choice, but a forced choice to upgrade from my 2080 Ti that we have using right here. Likely going to do more videos on that. Also want to pair the RTX 2080. We have the MSI RTX 2080 with lower end Ryzen CPUs and also 10th generation i5. So a lot of different influx of hardware that's going to come through the channel. Different types of content you can expect. I'm going to do a comprehensive review on the RTX 3090. We're going to check, thermals and GPU utilization and CPU bottlenecks at higher resolutions, all those good things, right? It's an amazing card. It's an amazing card, but we'll save most of that good jazz for the unboxing videos. I agree. I agree with like with Bad Habit says. We should save that for a separate unboxing. But yeah, there you have it. The Asus ROG Strix Gaming RTX 3090, 24 gigabytes of VRAM, GDDR6X, 10,400 plus CUDA cores. It's an insane card. If I can, I will get my hands on an 8K monitor just for novelty purposes to even see, how is 8K even really a thing? I'm still trying to get used to 4K, fam, right? So, yeah, which I imagine this card is going to be great at 4K. Also want to test out DLSS and just seeing if it's a viable feature to use to enhance the performance in your games that support it. I use DLSS in Cyberpunk 2077, especially when I'm playing at 4K, because I do like to turn up a lot of the different graphic settings. But man, it's an incredible card. And the funny thing is, I've told myself that if I had to get an RTX 3090, I had preferred it be the Asus ROG Strix variant, because I like the Asus ROG Strix. I had the 1080 Ti Asus ROG Strix, 980 Ti Asus ROG Strix. Love their Strix stuff. Bad Habit says my 6-year-old 1070 is still looking good. Yeah, there's a used video, a video that highlights the significance of going with a used PC or upgrading with going with used parts, and it revisits the GTX 1070, a reference GTX 1070 we have here in the lab, and a Ryzen 5 1600. The 1070 though is still a very much a capable card, especially for 1080p, and you want to enjoy a lot of the higher, a lot of the higher graphic settings, a lot of the higher presets. It has that 8 gigabyte VRAM buffer. Still no slouch, 1070. And if you can find them for under $200, it's especially a good pickup. And Bad Habit says, I did guess right last week about the 3090. Then again, I think I mentioned all of them. You did, Bad Habit. And I remember telling the moderator, my wife, I said, somebody did mention right on the live stream. It was toward the end. I saw you had mentioned the 3090. And at the time, I was like on the precipice of going with 3090. It was just I was waiting for this one to be in stock. And so when you said 3090, I did a slight nod. I think I just like nodded my head. It was like, they guessed it. They guessed it. But yeah, it was still a little indecisive. I was actually hoping that we would have saw at least the 3080 Ti announced at CES, which I know the title indicates that we were going to do a CES 2021 recap. But minus the RTX 3060, there wasn't really nothing too groundbreaking to come out of CES. We did get to see 11th gen Intel CPU running in real time, but you should always wait for third party or independent benchmarks before taking into consideration of what Intel wants to show us. But we also saw a lot of mobile chips, just a lot of mobile parts in general. But we didn't see an RTX 3080 Ti. We didn't see the 6700 XT GPUs that I was hoping for. We saw an RTX 3060. It's in my opinion that too will suffer from shortages as well. I had posted on Twitter a funny just pun or jab where I had said available end of February, already out of stock or something to that extent. Because no matter what, as soon as the GPU launches, it's going to be out of stock. It's going to be hard to find. This was the same thing with the RTX 3060 Ti, and at $329, it could very much be a value-oriented GPU, right? A solid one because it does have 12 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM. And that could be the new cores, right? The new marketing buzzword, VRAM, right? But CPUs is cores, right? Cores. This CPU has 8 cores, 16 cores, and 12 cores, and now GPUs have 10 gigabytes of VRAM and 12 gigabytes of VRAM and 16 gigabytes of VRAM, 24 gigabytes of VRAM. But yeah, and then Bad Habit says, so 3090 can do 8K. Absolutely, 3090 can do 8K. It's one of the 3080 certainly cannot, especially with Cyberpunk 2077. But if I could find a reasonably priced 8K monitor, that is definitely something we'll look into. I just don't have a need for 8K in the current production workflow. We probably won't start editing or shooting in 4K till after the first quarter of 2021. 1080p very much still relevant in my honest opinion. But I do also want to plan to improve my internet so that I can stream in 4K. Something else I want to test the NVIDIA encoder on the RTX 3090. So I do want to stream in 4K, but I don't have very good upload speeds here. So just worked on improving that though. So do be on the lookout for that. Starting with a pop-up live stream. Yeah, we'll see. Bad Habit says yes. My 1070 is Asus. Awesome. Yeah, I love Asus. I'm a fan of Asus graphics cards. I've owned a lot of Asus graphics cards. Some you can see up top here on the shelf, and some I have just sitting downstairs in the lower section of the lab. But I do like Asus graphics cards. Again, the if I were going to get a 3090, I told myself it's going to be the ROG Strix or bust. Right. I'm not a fan of the reference 30 series graphics cards. I'm just not. That's just me personally, though. To each his own. To each their own. But I like the reference. I like the reference cooler on this 3090. It is beefy though. I imagine it is beefy. It's probably a 3 slot or at least a two and a half slot. And Bad Habit says I stand corrected. It's EVGA. Just looked at it. Oh, some good stuff. I mean, them too. I have EVGA. My 2080 Ti is an EVGA. Although the cooling could be a little better, but my 1080, my GTX 1080 for the win, right? Which has GDDR6X memory. I love I love the aesthetics on that graphics card too. EVGA makes awesome products in general. Um, Bad Habit says, I think I bought the Asus, then returned it and got the EVGA instead. Okay, nice. And then speaking of, Patrick says, nice 3090. Yeah, like when I open it, I try to give the full disclaimer that it wasn't my first choice. It was just a forced choice. I more so very much wanted to get my hands on a 6900 XT. It's not it's not implemented yet, but I want to test AMD's version of ray tracing and their in variable refresh rate shading. Excuse me, their version of DLSS. I do want to test those things. It hasn't, they're not yet available to those graphics cards, but they too plan to be out of stock longer than the RTX 30 series. So I really didn't want to wait per se for a graphics card to either a upgrade from my 2080 Ti and just overall upgrade the editing rig, because that's essentially what we're going to do after all the tests are all wrapped up and we're done, like testing the RTX 3080, the RTX 3080, testing the RTX 3090. It'll likely go into my editing rig, which doubles as my gaming rig at the moment, but that very much could all change. We still have the micro ATX small form factor build that we're going to do too, because I want to show you in a premium setup how to stream from two PCs, especially if you have two of them that are small form factors. You could fit maybe in the same environment, right? Or one's a full-size ATX tower and a smaller form factor micro ATX that you can maybe stream from, run the game on one, and then monitor your stream on the other for maximum quality. But yeah, it's again not my first choice, but a forced choice. And I said if I'm gonna go with the best, it needs to be the best. And this is for Snow White. This is for my editing rig. Very much though an expensive GPU. That Asus didn't send me. I wish I was sampled at 3090. There's just not enough to go. There's just not enough to go around. And I waited for this one the moment Add-in Board Partners dropped their RTX 3090s. But yeah. Chris says, thanks for your time. I'm going to sleep. See you next time. Yeah, absolutely, Chris. I appreciate you hanging by and stopping out and hanging out with this live stream. In fact, I think it's time. I think the ride is slowly coming to an end. We've opened up the RTX 3090. We opened up our mystery box I shared on Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter, definitely follow me on Twitter at Inside the Lab YT. I'm also trying to build up our Instagram from scratch, so definitely follow us on Instagram as well at Inside the Lab YT. If you get my attention on both platforms, Twitter or Instagram, and I will follow you back on each one. Tell me that you're Lab Fam, hashtag Lab Fam, or you're from the channel, and I will certainly follow your feeds back as well. That is both Instagram and Twitter, both at Inside the Lab YT. Be sure to also check out our subscriber list and sign up to our newsletter with the pin chat down in the comment section below or in the description box. That too is free to sign up for, and our merch and our website. But yeah, I want to shout out to everybody who came and stopped by and hung out with us for our live show. Most importantly, Christoph, who was just here with us, Patrick, who stopped by, Bad Habits, Sparta Rules, 1993. Let's go up. Our moderator, Kimberly. Shout out to our moderator, Damon, that was here with us earlier. Definitely appreciate him stopping by. Another fellow creator. Let's see who else. Juan came by. Plants PK has stopped by. I appreciate you too, fam, for hanging out. XLRA Gaming has stopped by and hung out with us as well. And I believe that's it. Yeah. So, cat's out of the bag. It was a 3090. So be on the lookout for more content. Be on the lookout for the unboxing where we'll go in and we'll talk more about the plans for the RTX 3090. All right, but again, thanks everybody for hanging out here on the live stream. I do hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, be easy. out to you, Bad Habit. Have a good night, fam. Thanks for hanging out again. Patrick, peace to you too, brother. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this live stream. You be sure. I hope to catch you in the next one, Patrick. Good hanging out with you.